Good evening. You're watching the news tonight, your daily roundup of all that has happened across India and the world. I'm Ishan Russell, and these are the headlines that we're tracking this evening. India and the UK forge partnerships worth £9 billion, sign civil nuclear deal as Prime Minister Narendra Modi begins his maiden visit. All eyes on Modi's lunch with Queen Elizabeth at Buckingham Palace and address to the Indian community at Wembley. Mass rally and fireworks display lined up for the event as well. Controversy continues over Tipu Sultan's birth anniversary. Girish Karnad and a BJP MP received death threats. And EU leaders meet at Malta summit on migrant crisis, discuss cash aid and temporary border checks to stem the flow of migrants. Prime Minister Narendra Modi held talks with his British counterpart David Cameron hours after he began his maiden visit. The two sides focus on strengthening ties in various fields, including trade, defence and combating terror. The two sides also inked a civil nuclear deal today. Cameron pledged to help India make in India in the PM's pet project. He also backed for India's bid for the UN Security Council. The two premiers also held a press conference just a few minutes ago, and at that press conference, taking some hard questions, but stressing on the importance of the relationship. Both countries reaffirmed their commitment to move forward in the right direction. Over the next 2 days, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and UK Prime Minister David Cameron would be having wide-ranging talks, discussing issues related to trade, to economy as well. Remember, this is a visit by an Indian Prime Minister after quite some time to the UK. And as far as the partnerships go, well, Prime Minister Modi looking for investment from the UK, looking for growth in employment opportunities, looking for skill development as one of the major focus areas where the UK's expertise can be leveraged. The UK in turn promising to help in the Prime Minister's pet projects for smart cities, Make in India, Digital India and Skill India. And we're joined by Ambassador Jain Prasad to help us understand, as far as the Prime Minister's maiden visit goes to the UK, this time around a lot of things coming through, Ambassador Prasad, including a civil nuclear deal and economic engagement worth $9 billion.
You know, the significance of this visit is that the India-UK relationship has often been marred by our traditional ties, which are based on the historic linkages between the two countries, and very easily these relations slip into the margins of complacency. So this visit is a departure because UK for a long time, for now 5 years, has intended to make India one of the foci or one of the centers of its new initiatives in Asia. Prime Minister Cameron has visited India 3 times in the past 5 years, and when he came in 2010, he came with an extraordinarily large contingent of British business. India is now ready to engage, and you said this is a visit taking place after quite some time, 9 years to be precise, after Dr. Manmohan Singh visited UK in 2006. So the visit is significant in many ways because India has chosen, in the words of Mr. Modi, to use Britain as the entry point into Europe, right, which actually it has always been, but India has not articulated this so frontally as on this occasion.
Also, as far as energy security is concerned, that has been one of the major focus areas, and our civil nuclear deal in that regard could be very important as well. The Prime Minister also stressing on the need for climate change, addressing those concerns as well. And it looks as far as the strategic partnership between the two countries go, including the issue of terror that both the Prime Ministers extensively talked about in that press conference and said they would be discussing over the next couple of days. So the engagement we're seeing on multiple fronts as well, Ambassador Prasad.
Absolutely. And if you take, for example, just the security element of it, there are three distinct aspects which are important in the present context. One is Britain's continued engagement in India's periphery in Afghanistan. Their forces are still on the ground in Afghanistan, where the situation is deteriorating by the day. So that's one area of common concern for India and the United Kingdom. The other, of course, is extremism and terrorism, and how to combat Islam-Pasand forces, which have seen a huge resurgence in West Asia with the rise of the Daesh or the Islamic State.
Right.
And the third is our bilateral defense relationship, where Mr. Modi is looking for Make in India in defense, where the United Kingdom can play a big part. So our relationship has not been as productive as it could be, and we have neglected the fact that United Kingdom has kept up with technology. It's one of the leading countries in the world. It continues to be a great power, and it has a lot potentially to contribute to us. A large part of our military, including the Indian Navy, still has a huge British inheritance and still uses British equipment.
Absolutely.
And we have trainer aircraft from UK. We have a lot of other defense equipment from UK. In fact, UK is one of our top 5 defense providers.
Right. In fact, the UK would also be participating, Ambassador Prasad, in the fleet review, as Prime Minister Modi said, in the next fleet review as well, international fleet review. Indeed, the engagement is getting strengthened. And Ambassador Prasad, I just ask you to just hold on over there, because we're going to also play out a little story that we've put together about the Prime Minister's visit to the United Kingdom.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in London on a packed 3-day schedule aimed to boost India's economic ties with the country. He held talks with his UK counterpart David Cameron to strengthen economic, trade and defence ties, apart from sectoral cooperations. Modi and Cameron addressed a joint press conference later at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office.
Yet I do not believe that we're realising the true potential of this relationship. And that is what Prime Minister Modi and I want to change. As leaders, we share similar priorities to create jobs and opportunities for all, to protect our people from terrorism, and to tackle global challenges like climate change. And it makes sense to work together on these issues. We want British companies with their world-class consulting, project management and engineering skills to help you plan, design and build these new cities. So I'm delighted we've agreed a new 5-year partnership to develop 3 cities.
आज हमने निर्णय लिया है कि हम अपने पॉलिटिकल डायलॉग को और घनिष्ठ बनाएंगे और नियमित रूप से बायलैटरल समिट करेंगे। आज हमने सिविल न्यूक्लियर एग्रीमेंट पर हस्ताक्षर किए हैं। ये हमारे आपसी विश्वास का प्रतीक है और हमने क्लाइमेट चेंज का सामना करने के लिए हमारे दृढ़ संकल्प का परिचय भी दिया है।
India and Britain could announce deals worth £10 billion during the visit. India is keen to buy 20 more BAE Systems Hawk trainer aircraft for its armed forces to be made in Bengaluru. During the press conference, UK also backed India's bid for UNSC.
The UK firmly supports permanent membership for India on the United Nations Security Council. International institutions need to reflect the world as it is today in order to maintain relevance and to support the rules-based system that benefits us so much.
His talks with Cameron will carry on at the British Prime Minister's country residence of Chequers in Buckinghamshire, where he's being hosted overnight. On Friday, Modi will return to London for a roundtable with top CEOs, which is likely to include representatives from major British companies like Rolls-Royce and Vodafone. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And we have with us Ambassador Jayant Prasad, who's deciphering what's been happening as far as India-UK relations go. Ambassador Prasad, a very quick reaction of, do you expect anything more in the coming days? The broad outlines of the engagement have been defined, but as far as the specifics go over the next 2 days, as their leaders and their team would be thrashing those details out, what do you look forward to?
I look forward to a more productive exchange on the economic side, because the economic meetings with the CEOs, etc., lie ahead. And the significant part of the India-UK relationship now is that it's a two-way relationship. It's not a one-way relationship. It's not UK investments into India alone that we are talking about, because today the House of the Tatas is the largest single employer in the UK, with 65,000 men on their rolls in the JLR and the Chorus factories.
Right.
So this is significant. There is a figure that we have, a ballpark figure of $22 billion worth of UK investments in India. And we have not been able to really add up the Indian investments in UK, but they are easily running at a level between $500 million to $1 billion a year over the past several years. And this trend is likely to continue, and this is the new attractiveness of India. Mm-hmm. So we are not yet in the China league so far as UK is concerned, but we are going to get there soon.
All right.
That is the promise of the relationship.
All right. On that note, Ambassador Jayant Prasad, thank you very much for coming in and helping us understand how India and the UK are moving forward. Well, the Prime Minister's 3-day visit has also been marked by protests from groups like Awaz UK, Castle Watcher UK and a group of 200 writers. Now, that list includes Salman Rushdie, Bishnupriya Gupta and Neil Mukherjee, who've written an open letter to the British Prime Minister David Cameron urging action to safeguard freedom of expression in India. In fact, a correspondent, Arfa Khanum Sherwani, is in London and was at that press conference that the two Prime Ministers held a short while ago. And over there, Arfa, the question that was asked to Prime Minister Modi about the growing intolerance in India, and his response was that law will strike hard and no one incident, even one incident, would not be tolerated. So the Prime Minister talking about intolerance and saying something quite definite as far as the growing intolerance in the country is concerned.
Well, Rishan, yes, exactly. I mean, the press conference which both the leaders have just concluded was very interesting on many accounts, though both the leaders have talked about the bilateral relationships, but then Narendra Modi had to also face tough questions on intolerance, diversity, etc. So I would first like to start with the questions on bilateral relations. I would like to underline here what Prime Minister David Cameron said. He said that even UK companies will help in building smart cities of India, which is the pet project of Prime Minister Modi. Besides this, he said that UK is actually how important UK is for India, or how important India is for UK. He emphasized that actually UK is a bigger investor in India than actually the United States. So he wanted to say that on his priority list, India is quite above. And about terrorism, he said that India has lost a lot of security people and common citizens at the hands of terror, and on terrorism, UK and India are on the same page. But then let me also say it with some emphasis that the protesters who were opposing Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the UK they were successful in getting themselves registered. There were many hundreds of people who were here for many hours, I would say since 10:30 in the morning till about now, and there were hundreds and hundreds of people who were protesting against the visit of Prime Minister Modi. And then in the press conference, when Prime Minister Modi was asked about intolerance, he said nothing unconstitutional will be tolerated in India. It's a land of Buddha and Gandhi. But when there was a follow-up question on intolerance, he he opted not to answer that question. And this question was posted by one of the very prominent Western media outlets. So this, we're yet to see that how this will be sort of taken in the British media, but he opted not to answer this question. Right. Though he said that nothing unconstitutional will be tolerated. So there are some tough questions which Mr. Modi faced over here.
Absolutely. Alpha, very quickly, as far as the engagement is concerned, now both the leaders would be meeting over the next 2 days and talking about strengthening ties in definite ways. But there's also that big Wembley Arena event where 60,000 people are supposed to come in. So Prime Minister Modi might be facing a bit of protest also, but also would be witnessing a huge amount of support as well from the Indian diaspora, isn't it?
Definitely. This is talkable down in the diaspora. And before I answer you on that question, I would also like to say that when he was asked about his coming to UK and whether his visa was not approved and there was some kind of restriction on him coming here, he said he wanted to set the record straight that there was absolutely no restriction on him coming to the United Kingdom. He had come here in 2003 and he was very warmly welcomed here. So he made it a point to say that. Besides, you're talking about Wembley. Yes, there are huge sort of preparations and arrangements going on for Wembley, and we are expecting somewhere around 50 to 60,000 people attending that huge sort of address by Prime Minister Modi. It's going to be maybe bigger than he's ever attended, maybe much bigger than what he did in Madison Square Garden in America. So it's going to be more than 65,000 people there in Wembley. There are special buses which are going to Wembley Street. These are called Modi Express, and they're going to be enthusiasts mostly from Gujarat and other states as well. So we are going to see this contrast and combination of people. At one side, people are protesting that Modi should not be coming here to the UK for a bilateral meeting, and there are people who are over enthusiastic to meet Narendra Modi. I would like to mention one incident. There is one guy I met who hails from Gujarat in India. Right. He said that he wanted to meet Narendra Modi at any cost because his ailing father, one of the last wishes of him is to meet Narendra Modi. So, there are people who say that how much they love him, and there are people who are even protesting.
All right, interesting contradiction and the juxtaposition of both those things happening simultaneously over there. Alpha Khanum Sherwani, of course, will be giving us all the latest updates from London as they happen. Thanks so much for that for now, Alpha. As Alpha was pointing out, apart from the bilateral engagements, Prime Minister Modi will also meet the Queen and address a huge gathering of the Indian diaspora at the Wembley Stadium on Friday. Preparations are almost final for a grand reception at the iconic Wembley, where 60,000 people are expected to turn up.
After attending lunch with Queen Elizabeth at Buckingham Palace on Friday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will arrive for his grand reception at the iconic Wembley Stadium. The mass rally and fireworks display at Wembley is being seen as the centerpiece of the 3-day visit. Organizers have been working day and night to put an extravagant show. Some claim it will be bigger than Modi's Madison Square Garden event in US last year.
Everybody in the United Kingdom is really looking forward to his visit. We've been waiting for many months for this, and a lot of time, effort and energy has gone into preparing what will be, I think, the grandest reception that a foreign leader has ever received on British soil.
Modi will address the Indian community at Wembley in front of an expected 60,000 Indians. UK Prime Minister David Cameron will deliver the welcome speech. The 2-hour-long event will star more than 600 artists in an Olympic-style ceremony.
We've created an environment whereby people from different communities that have different dances, different songs, different this, different that, we've created an opportunity where they can all collaborate together, which is very exciting. So the program really reflects the mood of the Indian community here in the UK about collaboration, a very positive future.
The Prime Minister has been hosted by the Indian community on most of his visits abroad. The reception at the Madison Square Garden in New York last year has been one of the biggest, with an audience of around 18,000 people. Almost the same number attended the reception for Modi at San Jose in America's Silicon Valley this year. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
In fact, right now, let's go across to London, where Prime Minister Modi is addressing the British Parliament.
India. Today is special, and it's special for 2 reasons. First, this is a first. the first occasion upon which we will hear a speech by a serving Indian Prime Minister in our Parliament. Secondly, it is fitting that it takes place during Diwali, with the resonance which that entails for millions across this country, in India, and indeed throughout the world. What's more, today is New Year's Day. Saal Mubarak. Happy New Year! The ties between our two countries are so multiple, deep and enduring that they frankly require no elaboration or rehearsal this afternoon. Skeptics sometimes suggest that democracy is all but impossible to create or to maintain in countries of a certain size, degree of diversity, or level of economic development. Over the past 68 years, India has proved to be a standing rebuke to such skeptics. To rout the disbelievers completely, however, democracy has to demonstrate that it can respect free speech and incorporate a true diversity of creeds, faiths, and orientations without diminishing or disrespecting any of them. With some 1.3 billion people and a burgeoning young population, India will become the most populous nation on our planet, well within the lifetimes of many people here present. And it is destined to become a leader in the world. Put bluntly, India is all of our futures. Preparing for such a prospect is a daunting challenge to which Prime Minister Modi has devoted great thought and attention. Friends and colleagues, Mr. Modi is known in Indian circles as Mr. Tech. He pioneered the expansion of the Internet in Gujarat during his lengthy tenure as Chief Minister there, and in the past 18 months in Delhi, he has established a Digital India scheme and indeed created a network of smart cities. He has an astonishing 12 million followers on Twitter, and he is extremely comfortable communicating with fellow citizens via the medium of Google Hangouts on Android Lollipop. In a spirit of friendly competition, I'm sure that our own leaders in all parties will now strive to follow your example, sir. Mr. Modi has recently returned from taking Silicon Valley by storm, holding talks with, amongst others, Mr. Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook. It is reasonable to assume, Prime Minister, that you will find events today in this historic setting something of a contrast. The contrast is not, however, a contradiction. We welcome you today, not principally in order to commemorate the past, but rather to herald the present and to gaze to the future. Prime Minister, thank you for coming. It is my pleasure to invite you to speak to us.
Lord Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Prime Minister, I'm delighted to be in London. Even in this globalized world, London is still the standard of our times. The city has embraced the world's diversity and represent the finest in human achievements. And I am truly honored to speak in the British Parliament. Mr. Speaker, thank you for opening the doors to us here in this magnificent setting of the Royal Court. I know that the Parliament is not in session. Prime Minister Cameron looks relaxed and relieved. But I want to remind you, Mr. Prime Minister, that you owe my loyalty for an election slogan. I know that you are hosting me at the Checkers this evening. But I also know that you will understand if I am fair to both sides of the floor, especially since British MPs of Indian origin are evenly balanced between the Treasury and the opposition benches. So I also extend my good wishes to the Labour. Indeed, since these are still early days after the election, my warm congratulations to the members of the House. And greetings to the eminent leaders of Britain and great friends of India present here today. So much of the modern history of India is linked to this building. So much history looms across our relationship. There are others who have spoken forcefully on the dates and dues of history. I will only say that many freedom fighters of India found their calling in the institutions of Britain. And many makers of modern India, including several of my distinguished predecessors, from Jawaharlal Nehru to Dr. Manmohan Singh, passed through their doors. There are many things on which it is hard to tell anymore if they are British or Indian. The Jaguar of the Scotland Yard, for example, the Brookbone tea, or my friend, late Lord Ghulam Noon's curry. And our strongest debates are whether the Lord's pitch swings unfairly or the wicket at Eden Garden cracks too early. And we love the Bhangra rap from London just as you like the English novel from India. On the way to this event, Prime Minister Cameron and I paid homage to Mahatma Gandhi outside the Parliament. I was reminded of a question I was asked on a tour abroad. How is it that the statue of Gandhi stands outside the British Parliament? To that question, my answer is, the British are wise enough to recognize his greatness. Indians are generous enough to share him. We are both fortunate enough to have been touched by his life and mission. And we are both smart enough to use the strengths of our connected histories to power the future of our relationship. So I stand here today not as a visiting head of government, given the honor to speak in this temple of democracy. I'm here as a representative of a fellow institution and a shared traditions. And tomorrow, Prime Minister and I will be at the Wembley. Even in India, every young footballer wants to bend it like Beckham. Wembley will be a celebration of 1.5 million threads of life that binds us. 1.5 million people proud of their heritage in India, proud of their home in Britain. It will be an expression of joy for all that we share. Values, institutions, political system, sports, culture, and art. And it will be recognition of a vibrant partnership and a shared future. The United Kingdom is the third largest investor in India behind Singapore and Mauritius. India is the third largest source of foreign direct investment projects in the United Kingdom. Indians invest more in Britain than in the rest of European Union combined. It is not because they want to save on interpretation costs, but because they find an environment that is welcoming and familiar. It takes an Indian icon, Tata, to run a British icon and become your nation's largest private sector employer. The UK remains a preferred destination for India students. And I'm pleased that an Indian company is taking 1,000 British students to India to skill them in information technology. We are working together in the most advanced area of science and technology. We are finding solutions to the enduring human problems of food and health security and seeking answers to emerging challenges like climate change. Our security agencies work together so that our children return home safe and our increasingly networked lives are not prey to the threats on cyberspace. Our armed forces exercise with each other so that they can stand more strongly for the values we represent. This year alone, we have had 3 exercises together. And in the international arena, your support has made it more possible for India to take her rightful place in global institutions and regimes. And it has helped us both advance our common interests. Mr. Speaker, strong as our partnership is, for relationship such as ours, we must set higher ambitions. We are 2 democracies, 2 strong economies, and 2 innovative societies. We have the comfort of familiarity and the experience of a long partnership. Britain's resurgence is impressive. Its influence on the future of the global economy remains strong. And Mr. Speaker, India is a new bright spot of hope and opportunity for the world. It is not just the universal judgment of international institutions. It is not just the logic of numbers. A nation of 1.25 billion people with 800 million under the age of 35 years. This optimism comes from the energy and enterprise of our youth, eager for change and confident of achieving it. It is the result of bold and sustained measures to reform our laws, policies, institutions, and processes. We are igniting the engines of our manufacturing sector, making our farms more productive and more resilient, making our services more innovative and efficient, moving with urgency on building global skills for our youth, creating a revolution in startup enterprises, and building the next generation infrastructure that will have a light footprint on the earth. Our momentum comes not just from the growth we pursue, but from the transformation that we seek in the quality of life for every citizen. Much of India that we dream of still lies ahead of us. Housing, power, water and sanitation for all, bank accounts and insurance for every citizen, connected and prosperous villages, and smart and sustainable cities. These are goals with a definite date, not just a mirage of hope. And inspired by Gandhiji, the change has begun with us, the way the government works. There is transparency and accountability in governance. There is boldness and speed in decisions. Federalism is no longer the fault line of center-state relation, but the definition of a new partnership of Team India. Citizens now have the ease of trust, nor the burden of proof and processes. Business find an environment that is open and easy to work in. In a nation connected by cell phones, Digital India is transforming the interface between government and people. So, Mr. Speaker, with apologies to poet T.S. Eliot, we will not let the shadow fall between the idea and reality. If you visit India, you will experience the wind of change. It is reflected in the surge of investments from around the world, enhanced stability of our economy. In 190 million new bank accounts of hope and inclusion, in the increase in our growth to nearly 7.5% per year, and in the sharp rise in our ranking on ease of doing business. And the motto of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas is our vision of a nation in which every citizen belongs, participates and prospers. It is not just a call for economic inclusion, it is also a celebration of our diversity, the creed for social harmony, and a commitment to individual liberties and rights. This is the timeless ethos of our culture, this is the basis of our constitution, and this will be the foundation of our future. Mr. Speaker, members and friends, the progress of India is the destiny of 1/6 humanity, and it will also mean a world more confident of its prosperity and more secure about its future. It is also natural and inevitable that our economic relations will grow by leaps and bounds. We will form unbeatable partnership if we combine our unique strength and the size and the scale of opportunities in India. We will see more investment and trade. We will open new doors in the service sector. We will collaborate more here and in India. In defense equipment and technology, we will work together on renewable and nuclear energy. We will explore the mysteries of science and harness the power of technology and innovation. We will realize the opportunities of the digital world. Our youth will learn more from and with each other. But a relationship as rich as this, with so much promise as ours, cannot be measured only in terms of our mutual prosperity. Mr. Speaker, ours is an age of multiple transition in the world. We are yet to fully comprehend the future unfolding before us. As in the previous ages, it will be different from the world we know. So in the uncharted waters of our uncertain times, we must together help steer a steady course of this world in the direction that mirrors the ideals we share. For in that lies not just the success of our two nations, but also the promise of the world that we desire. We have the strength of our partnership and the membership of the United Nations, the Commonwealth, and the G20. We live in a world where instability in a distant region quickly reaches our doorsteps. We see this in the challenges of radicalization and refugees. The fault lines are shifting from the boundaries of nations into the web of our societies and the streets of our cities. And terrorism and extremism are a global force that are larger than their changing names, groups, territories, and targets. The world must speak in one voice and act in unison to combat this challenge of our times. We must adopt a comprehensive convention on international terrorism in the United Nations without delay. There should be no distinction between terrorist groups or discrimination between nations. There should be a resolve to isolate those who harbor terrorists and willingness to stand with nations that will fight them honestly. And we need a social movement against extremism in countries where it is most prevalent, and every effort to de-link religion and terrorism. Oceans remain vital for our prosperity. Now we have to also secure our cyber and outer space. Our interests are aligned across many regions. We have a shared interest in stable, prosperous, and integrated South Asia round, together in a shared march to prosperity. We want an Afghanistan that is shaped by the dreams of the great Afghan people, not by irrational fears and overreaching ambitions of others. A peaceful, stable Indian Ocean region is vital for global commerce and prosperity. And the future of Asia-Pacific region will have profound impact on all of us. We both have huge stakes in West Asia and the Gulf. And in Africa, where amidst many challenges, we see so many promising signs of courage, wisdom, leadership, and enterprise. India has just held an Africa summit in which all 55 countries and 42 leaders participated. We must also cooperate to launch a low-carbon age for a sustainable future for our planet. This is a global responsibility that we must assume in Paris later this month. The world has crafted a beautiful balance of collective action, common but differentiated responsibility and respective capabilities. Those who have the means and the know-how must help meet the universal aspirations of humanity for clean energy and a healthy environment. And when we speak of restraint, we must not only think of curbing fossil fuels, but also moderating our lifestyles. We must all do our part. For India, a target of 175 gigawatt of additional capacity in renewable energy by 2022 and reduction in emission intensity of 33 to 35% by 2030 are just two of the steps of a comprehensive strategy. I have also proposed to launch during the COP21 meeting an international solar alliance to make solar energy an integral part of our lives, even in the most unconnected villages. In Britain, we are more like to use an umbrella against rain than the sun. But my team defined the membership of the Solar Alliance in more precise terms. We have to be located within the tropics, and we are pleased that the United Kingdom qualifies. So we look forward to an innovative Britain as a valuable partner in this endeavor. Prime Minister Cameron and I are indeed very pleased that cooperation and affordable and accessible clean energy is an important pillar of our relations. Mr. Speaker, this is a huge moment for our two great nations. So we must seize our opportunities, remove the obstacles to cooperation, instill full confidence in our relations, and remain sensitive to each other's interests. In doing so, we will transform our strategic partnership and we will make this relationship count as one of the leading global partnerships. Ever so often, in the call of Britain's most famous bard, that we must seize the tide in the affairs of man, the world has sought the inspiration to act, and so must we. But in defining the purpose of our partnership, we must turn to a great son of India whose house in London I shall dedicate to the cause of social justice on Saturday. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, whose 125th birth anniversary we are celebrating now, was not just an architect of India's constitution and our parliamentary democracy. He also stood for the upliftment of the weak, the oppressed, and the excluded. And he lifted us all to a higher cause in the service of humanity, to build a future of justice, equality, opportunity, and dignity for all humans, and peace among people. That is the cause to which India and the United Kingdom have dedicated themselves today. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Indeed, a proud moment there for India. Prime Minister Modi becoming the first Indian Prime Minister to address the British Parliament, stressing on the importance of the partnership between the two countries, the historic nature of the ties, and how these ties would be looking in the future, and innovative Britain helping with technology to make India energy secure, and India, of course, in return, investing in Britain. So a lot to look forward to over the next 2 days as far as Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the UK goes. We'll be getting a continued coverage of that, but now we'll take a break. Thanks so much for watching.